Alright, this training video is about the equipment module. The equipment module was created to allow routeman companies to keep track of equipment that's rented or leased or just placed for free at customer locations, but has also been expanded to allow you to keep track of trucks, hand trucks, pallet movers, pallet jacks, any kind of equipment that you have that you use that you would like to keep track of maintenance and that kind of thing. If you have the equipment module, you will see the tab up here. This is a separate module that can be purchased from KCS to add on to your routeman. If you don't currently have it, contact us and we'll share the current pricing with you. When you have the equipment module, you also have an equipment tab down here. And this is where it's going to display equipment that is located at whatever customer is selected. When you first go to set up, when you have the equipment module, you'll go to File, System Admin, and here you're going to be able to choose the default customer for unallocated equipment. And so usually you will use either default customer or the customer that's named after your company, the one that's at the top of the list. And then when you have equipment that's back at the warehouse, this is where it's going to be listed under your default customer. So from these tabs down here, you're able to go to a specific piece of equipment, pull it up, and get its information. You're able to transfer it out to a different location, that kind of thing. But to begin setting up your equipment, you will actually come in here and go to equipment types. First, you want to describe which equipment types you're going to keep track of in routeman. And then you can always add new ones in the future if you needed to. So let's just pretend I'm going to add printers. Okay, so now I have another category, another equipment type. The reason you want to be able to do this is in the reporting aspect of it, there are reports that you can run that track by equipment type. And so if you want to be able to do that in the future, it's helpful. Sometimes we think of trucks as being a piece of equipment, and they are, but trucks are also a product location in routeman. So when you create a truck in routeman, normally we create it as a product location, but it's also optionally possible to track your trucks as a piece of equipment to be able to record specific things with your truck. Just know that it's two separate categories, and just because you entered them in product locations, those trucks will not necessarily show up as an equipment type unless you go in and create them on purpose as a piece of equipment. Okay, so once we have our equipment types, we're able to come in here to equipment, and when you pull this up, this is similar to your customer list. Each piece of equipment in your database is going to have its own personality, its own information, its own settings, and its own records. And so you're able to choose from this drop-down list which piece of equipment that you're working with. In today's video, we're going to look at this 124 jack equipment number. Okay, the equipment number field can be whatever you're going to use to select from the screen to keep track of which piece of equipment that you're looking at. Different companies use different naming structures. Some just use a code, some use a short name, that kind of thing. In this case, I have it labeled 124 jack. Then in the equipment description, you can enter a longer, more helpful, more detailed description if you would like. There are host settings that can control which one of these show up if you're printing them on reports or pulling them up in a list. The equipment type is a required field, so when you're entering a new piece of equipment, you have to select one. The barcode is optional. It can be entered at the office in the desktop software, or if your route mobile devices are given permission to, you can enter some of this information while out in the field on your route mobile device. The warehouse is again a required field. And even though the default customer is in essence holding these different pieces of equipment, this equipment is tied to a particular warehouse. When you add a piece of equipment, the active box is checked by default. If you are ever finished with a piece of equipment, we normally would suggest making them inactive instead of deleting them, because we don't want to lose the history with that equipment. Along this column, if you are going to add a single piece of equipment, you can come in here and add just like you would with the customers. It blanks everything out and you can enter line by line. If you need to edit, you can do the same thing. Delete, again, if it's ever been used with a customer, we suggest not deleting, but making it inactive. And then copying is for when much of the general information is the same. If you use the copy feature, you can create a duplicate and then simply edit the name, maybe add a number to it or something like that. Okay, I'm going to switch it to my 123 freezer to display some different information down here. We have tabs going across the bottom that are going to help keep track of the different information for this piece of equipment. The General tab, you can enter the equipment manufacturer. That can be part of your naming structure up here in the description if you so choose, but it doesn't have to, and it has its own field. You can enter a serial number if you desire to. The in-service date keeps track of when you began using this piece of equipment, and the warranty, you can keep a record of when the warranty expires here. And you can actually save a document that shows the warranty under the docs folder, which we'll get to in a moment if you have it. The equipment model can be kept here. Original cost. The anticipated complete date would be when you expect that the equipment would need to be replaced. The last PM date would be the last date that you performed preventive maintenance on it. And the threshold percentage I don't believe is actually being used at this point, but was created to allow us to set a threshold where once quantity of product in this piece of equipment reached a certain threshold, it generated an order. You have a spot to put notes down here that have to do with this piece of equipment in general, okay? And so you could have something that has to do with the description of the box or something like that. Periodic billing is where we enter the amount that we're going to charge per month, per week, per year, whatever it is. We can come in here and edit the price to be whatever it needs to be. And then we have options: weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannually, and yearly. We can choose the date of the month that we're going to bill them, and we can enter the rental cost. If you are still paying off the equipment, or you are yourself renting the equipment and then turning around and renting to someone else, if you know this amount, you can enter it there, and there are actually some reports that can reflect the difference of those numbers. The location description. Here, I would think it's helpful to give the driver some indication on large properties or inside large stores where their equipment is located. Assign to product location. This is a little bit strange to think about because we normally think about an ice box or a water cooler or a freezer, that kind of thing, being the piece of equipment, and we assign it to a customer's physical address. We attach the equipment to the actual customer. In this case, this would be if you had, let's say, a hand truck that had to be assigned to a particular truck. And so you would come in here and assign it to that vehicle so that you could keep track of which piece of equipment belonged with another piece of equipment. Docks. This operates just the same as your docks for your customers and can be used to keep track of all kinds of electronic files so that you can keep reference in the future with this piece of equipment. So if you have a PDF or an Excel file or a picture or even a video, you can drag it into this white square from somewhere on your desktop and it will save with this piece of equipment. If the device is given permission to, the driver or the technician that goes out to the field and does maintenance on the equipment can actually snap an image and it will immediately import into the docs folder for that piece of equipment. Let us know if you need help turning on that setting and training your driver to do that. The Queries tab is not currently being used. This was designed in case companies had particular search and export queries that had to do with equipment, and at this point we don't have any of those. Specs. This allows you to create other fields of information that you would like to keep track of that may not exist in the General tab. So you can see a couple examples that I had in here that I wanted to enter, and then you can come in here and edit whatever quantity you want, whatever value you want, and it will keep track of that's the cubic foot size for this particular freezer. It's a little bit strange to think about, but if you want to add another specific, you can't hit add right here. That doesn't let you enter a new spec description. So the way we do that is we'll hit return. We'll come up here to equipment, and there's equipment specs right here. So let's say we're going to enter max quantity 10 pounds. Will be my next spec description. Max quantity 20 pound. Okay. Now when I hit return, I'm going to have to hit refresh. Now I come back to equipment, I choose the same piece, and I go to specs. There, I have another place where I can enter that max quantity. All right, customer locations. This is going to be a history of where this box has been. So this freezer had a start date back in 2019 and was at this customer until November, and then was transferred to target number 24, and you can see here that it's keeping track of the next billing date. Now unfortunately on my test database I don't run my periodic billing very faithfully, so the truth is I need to go in there and run it so that this next billing date will be current. But if I wanted to come in here and transfer this piece of equipment, it would allow me coming right here to transfer to a different customer and choose which date it happened. Maybe it wasn't exactly today, I'm just entering the information now. I can hit OK, and you can see that it's updated the end date for target 24, and now it's been switched to target number 29 on the 8th, and it's giving me a next billing date. If for some reason I say, I don't want to stick with that next billing date, I can edit it right here. So in this case I might say, well, that's not fair to bill them for a whole month when they've only had it for part of the month. So I can come in here and say, no, I'm going to put my next billing date into January or something like that. Okay. If I want to clear the next billing date, this will basically turn off my periodic billing for this particular piece of equipment. So if you are sending this piece of equipment to a customer who you are not going to do equipment billing for, you can choose that button. If I use the button that says pickup, that's going to be to record the fact that one of my drivers went to pick up this equipment, and it's going to be saved back to my default customer to keep track of it. To edit the start date would allow me to come in here and adjust if there was some kind of error in one of the start dates, and edit end date does the same thing. Delete entry would be if I completely messed up this particular transfer. I would just highlight it and hit delete entry. Or if I want to go to customer, I can select whichever customer is necessary and hit go to it, and it immediately launches that customer, and I can see the piece of equipment under them right there. All right, one more thing to show about the equipment module. If we close that and come back up here to equipment, there is generate new blank equipment. If you would like, you can create a lot of blank pieces of equipment and let your staff enter information about the pieces of equipment one at a time. So if a driver goes out to a customer location that has a piece of equipment and they want to enter details about them, they have to have something to start with. So you can create blank pieces of equipment and let them sit on your default customer, and then when the driver goes out, if the device has permissions, they can transfer a blank piece of equipment from the default customer to the customer they're at and fill out the necessary equipment. When you do this generating new blank equipment, you can enter any information that is generic to all your equipment. That's the same for all of them. So we're going to leave it as new box, or if it were something else, new cooler, new freezer, whatever it is, you could edit that. And you can come in here and say, give me 100 pieces. And if you know the manufacturer is the same for all these 100 boxes, you could fill it in here, and then that keeps your driver from having to enter it, or your person in the office having to enter it each time. And you could go through and fill in any information that's going to be the same for all of them. And then when you hit submit, that's going to add them into the equipment list. They would be listed as new box or new freezer, whatever it was that you entered, and they would be also assigned to your default customer so that your staff could find the blanks and transfer them to the correct locations and then add detailed information from there. If you would like to learn about periodic billing and equipment billing, that is a separate video. So you can go back to the routeman help videos file and search for equipment billing or periodic billing. And as always, if you need help, feel free to give us a call at the office or send us an email, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions that have to do with equipment.